Before we get started with today's stories, I want to take a moment to thank DraftKings for sponsoring this video. DraftKings is a real money online casino that allows you to play whenever and wherever you want, as long as it's legal. As one of the industry leaders, DraftKings offers a wide range of exclusive games, from popular slots to live dealer table games. With hundreds of your favorite real money games at your fingertips, DraftKings Casino is the place to be this spring. They currently have over 300 real money games, and that number is constantly growing. If DraftKings Casino isn't available in your state, don't worry. You can still try the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app, which offers the chance to win cash prizes throughout the season. And here's the great news. If you head over to the DraftKings Casino app right now and sign up with the promo code Mr. Nightmare, you'll get 500 slot spins instantly for just $5. Try it now and see how DraftKings is changing the game in the online casino world. When I was 22, I started renting an apartment downstairs from my parents. It was more a practical decision than a decision of freedom. I wanted to save money and still enjoy some privacy. However, living so close to my family meant that privacy was always limited. I couldn't have complete freedom to have friends over or do anything without feeling like I was being watched from above. The downstairs apartment was separated from the rest of the house by a lockable door. The layout was fairly simple, an open-plan living room and kitchenette, leading to a hallway that led to the bedrooms, bathroom, and laundry room. The only access to the apartment was a side door in the living room that led directly to the yard. That weekend, my parents were away on vacation. This was my chance to have some real privacy. I invited my two best friends, Anthony and Jay, over. That night, we sat on the couch in the living room, watching a hockey game on TV, drinking beer, and chatting away. No longer worried about disturbing anyone, we turned up the music, enjoyed our favorite music, and laughed freely. For convenience, I opened the door to the upper floor because I had drinks in the large refrigerator there. When the game ended, all three of us were tipsy. Anthony and Jay, knowing that they shouldn't be driving in their condition, decided to sleep over. The couch in the living room was big and comfortable enough for two people to lie down. After saying goodnight, I went to my bedroom, locking the door as I usually do before going to bed. I felt relaxed and comfortable, and soon fell asleep. Footsteps in the dark. I don't know how long I slept before I was awakened by a strange sound. It was still dark, and I heard footsteps coming from upstairs. At first, I thought it was Anthony or Jay. Maybe they were up there to get more beer or snacks. But the footsteps didn't sound like theirs. They were heavy and lasted longer than they should have. I felt a little uneasy, but decided to ignore them and try to close my eyes and go back to sleep. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of my bedroom doorknob being turned. A feeling of unease rose in me. I didn't understand why Anthony or Jay would want to come into my room in the middle of the night. However, I was too tired to react. I thought maybe they were mistaken, and eventually the noise stopped. I fell back asleep. A strange morning. The next morning, I woke up to find Anthony gone and Jay still sleeping on the couch in the living room. When Jay woke up, I asked him if he had tried to open my bedroom door last night. Jay, with a dreamy look on his face, said he didn't remember doing it. Although the answer was unsatisfactory, I did not ask any more questions and did not mention this to Anthony. That day, I was busy with outside appointments and only returned home late at night. I did not drink as much beer as the day before, but the tired feeling after a long day made me want to go to bed. After a shower and a snack, I went to the bedroom, turned on the TV to watch a short program before turning off the lights. Feeling uneasy, As soon as I turned off the TV, the noise from upstairs rang out again. This time, the footsteps were clearer, stronger, and did not seem to belong to someone familiar. My heart beat faster. A feeling of anxiety rose. I tried to listen in silence, but the noise stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence. Not long after, I heard the sound of my bedroom doorknob being tried again. This time, I jumped up, feeling as if I had just been pushed out of bed by a nightmare. The sound of the knob turning was followed by gentle but persistent knocking. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table and started texting my parents, Anthony and Jay. No one answered. With no other choice, I called 911. I whispered to the operator, explained the situation, and asked for the police to come immediately. I asked them to come to my bedroom window so as not to attract attention from anyone outside the door. Horrifying discovery. A moment later, I heard a light tap on the window. Looking out, I was relieved to see a police officer. I opened the window and handed them the front door key. The two officers began searching the downstairs apartment first, but found nothing unusual. They then moved upstairs. As they entered my parents' bedroom, there was a sudden noise. I heard the police shouting, followed by the sound of a struggle. Through the crack in the door, I saw them drag a man out from under the bed. The man looked dirty and haggard, and his eyes were full of hatred as he looked at me. It was a look that sent a chill down my spine. The police asked me if I knew this man. I confirmed that I had never seen him before. The man was handcuffed and taken away. I cannot describe the feeling of relief and horror in my heart. Unanswered questions. The next morning, I called my parents to tell them what had happened. They were shocked and decided to install a security system for the house. Although nothing was stolen, I couldn't help but wonder, when did this man sneak into the house? How long had he been there without me knowing? And what was his real purpose? From then on, I never felt completely safe in my own home. The slightest noise at night was enough to startle me, and the man's hateful eyes haunted me every time. I recalled this story. The small pieces of fabric seemed to hold a story that I couldn't quite understand at the moment. I picked it up, feeling the rough texture between my fingers. The dim light from the table lamp illuminated the fabric, revealing a pale color, perhaps once blue, but now faded. One edge was frayed, as if it had been yanked or torn from something larger. I stood there, a chill running down my spine as I stared at the piece of fabric. It was not something I had ever seen in my home. I certainly didn't have anything of that texture or color. Why was it here? And more importantly, how had it come to be in the closet of the spare bedroom, a room that was rarely used and always locked? I turned around, my gaze sweeping across the room. The closet was wide open, the darkness in the deep corner seeming to swallow everything. I couldn't help but wonder if something had been hiding in there before I entered. The uneasiness was palpable, making me feel every beat of my heart in my chest. I turned on my flashlight and shined it carefully into every corner of the closet. There was nothing but a few empty hangers and a dusty shelf. But strangely, the dust on the floor in the corner of the closet seemed to have been disturbed. There were faint traces, like small grooves made by something or someone moving. I knelt down and touched them lightly with my hand. They were still fresh. Someone had been here or something had left these traces. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the sofa, the cloth still in my hand, and my mind was spinning with questions. I wondered if this was some kind of prank or if something really was going on. I thought about calling the police, but I had no evidence other than this cloth and the uneasiness in my heart. Instead, I decided to find out for myself. The next day, I searched the entire house. I checked the windows, the doors, even the hidden corners I hadn't thought of before, but everything seemed intact. There was no sign of a break-in. The piece of cloth was my only clue, but it got me nowhere. That evening, I decided to set up a surveillance camera in the spare bedroom. I'd bought it a few months ago to monitor wildlife around the lake, but now it had a different purpose to find out who or what was disturbing the peace of my home. I placed the camera in the corner of the room, facing the window and the closet, and sat waiting. Time passed slowly. The clock struck midnight, then 1 in the morning. I put my head down on the table, feeling tired. And then there was that sound, the familiar scratching sound from the spare bedroom window. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding. But this time, I didn't rush out. I waited, listening. The sound continued, as if something was deliberately trying to prolong my fear. The scratching turned into tapping, soft but steady, like a strange melody. I couldn't take it anymore. With the crowbar in hand, I walked slowly toward the room, feeling my steps echo in the silent house. As I approached the door, I stopped, listening. My heart sank as I realized the tapping was no longer coming from outside. It was inside the room. I gripped the crowbar, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. The spare bedroom was empty, but the air inside seemed heavier than usual. I swept the flashlight beam around the room, the light penetrating every corner, every crack. I walked to the closet and threw open the door. But, like last time, it was empty. I couldn't make out what was going on. I turned back to my desk, where the monitor was connected to the surveillance camera. When I replayed the footage, what I saw made my blood run cold. The camera had captured a dark figure moving across the room. So fast, it was almost imperceptible. It didn't look human, nor did it look animal. It was blurry, as if it didn't belong to this world. And then I saw the closet door open without anyone touching it. I sat there, eyes glued to the screen, unable to believe what I had just witnessed. A chill ran down my spine. I realized I wasn't simply dealing with an intruder, but something else, something I couldn't quite explain. I felt a chill run down my spine as I tried to make my way back to the living room to check on what was going on. My mind was in a whirlwind. Who is it? What are they? What are they doing here? The questions kept coming, but none of them had clear answers. I didn't want to believe it, but there was no denying it now. Someone or something was outside my house, watching me. My hands were shaking so much, I could barely control them as I reached for the phone to call 911. The operator answered immediately, but I struggled to speak through the panic in my voice. "There's someone outside my house," I said, breathing heavily. "I think they're still here." I gave them my address, and they said they would send a police unit right away. I hung up, looking around the room nervously. Every little sound in the house seemed to double, making me even more nervous. I knew I couldn't stay here any longer. As I turned to get my coat, a soft sound came from the hallway. It was a long, drawn-out, dull rustling, as if someone was slowly shuffling through the house. Without hesitation, I ran to the back door, threw it open, and ran into the woods behind the house. I ran as if my life depended on every step. Leaves and twigs crunched under my feet, and the darkness and silence made me feel like I was the only person in the world. My lungs burned from trying to catch my breath, but I didn't dare stop. I only stopped when I reached the edge of the lot, where I could see the flashing lights of police cars in the distance. I slowed down, shaking, and hid behind a tree to watch. The officers got out of their cars, guns drawn, and cautiously entered the house. I wanted to stay and see what happened, but I couldn't. I didn't dare. I knew that whatever or whoever had been in that house was not done. I no longer felt safe there. After contacting the police again to let them know I was safe, I never went back to that house. The little cabin sat quietly in the woods, but it was no longer my home. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear the soft knocking, echoing from my memory. I didn't know who had been in my house or what they wanted, but I knew one thing for sure: they were still waiting. And they were still out there. This happened when I was about 15 in 2008. It was a normal night when my parents decided to go out to the casino, leaving me and our dog, Abby, at home. It was around 11 p.m., and I was sitting in front of my computer, texting my friends on Messenger and watching YouTube videos. Everything was peaceful until Abby started barking loudly in the living room. At first, I didn't pay much attention, thinking that maybe Abby heard something outside, maybe a car passing by. But after a few minutes, her barking became more intense. I thought maybe my parents had come home, so I got up to check. When I walked into the living room, I saw Abby standing in front of the window, staring out and growling. The porch light was off, and everything outside was dark. I looked out the window, but I couldn't see anything but darkness and the silhouettes of trees against the sky. I whispered to Abby to calm her down, but she continued to growl. An uneasy feeling began to take over me. I turned back to my computer, trying to calm myself. But for the next few minutes, I kept hearing strange noises around the house, very light footsteps, or something scraping against the walls. Abby barked louder, this time toward the front door. I stood up again, slowly approaching the window. When I looked through, I felt my heart stop for a moment. Someone or something was standing at the end of the hallway, a shadowy, motionless figure, seemingly watching the house. I didn't dare look any longer, quickly pulling the curtains back and stepping back. A light knock came from the living room door. Abby growled deeper, as if trying to warn me. I held my breath, feeling as if time had stopped. The knock came again, slow and steady. "Please, who's there?" I shouted, but there was no answer. There was only silence, more terrifying than the noise. I rushed to the phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. This time, I didn't care if I dropped the phone. When the operator answered, I blurted out, my voice choked with panic. "There's someone outside my house. Please, send someone right away." After giving my address, I hung up and quickly made my way out. I couldn't stay. The footsteps seemed to be moving closer inside the house. I knew that if I didn't leave immediately, things could get much worse. As I rushed out, leaving everything behind, there was only one thing on my mind: get out of here. And I did. But I will never forget that night, and the horror of knowing that I was being watched in the very place I called home. It was a quiet evening, and I was home alone because my parents had gone out to dinner with friends. Abby, my black terrier, was my only companion. She had always been a loyal friend and a great comfort to me, especially when I was home alone. But that night, our usual peace was shattered. I was curled up on the sofa, reading a book, when a soft knock sounded from the front door. My heart pounded. I told myself it was probably just the wind, but when the noise repeated, I knew something was wrong. The knock was slow, haunting, as if someone was testing my patience. I stood up, trying to calm myself, and walked toward the door. But as I put my hand to the peephole, I hesitated. Part of me was terrified at the thought of seeing a strange, scary face staring back at me from the other side. Instead, I double-checked the door, making sure it was securely locked. I decided to go back to the living room to continue reading, trying to forget the feeling of insecurity. But less than a minute later, another noise came, this time from the other side of the house. It was a pounding on the basement door. My heart stopped. My basement wasn't easy to get to. To get there, you had to go around the entire house, through the backyard and under the deck. The basement door was almost hidden, and only someone who knew the house well would be able to find it. Someone was there, trying to open the door. Abby began whining and barking loudly, running from room to room as if she sensed the threat. The noise from the basement grew louder and then stopped abruptly. I stood still, not daring to breathe, listening to every sound. Then Abby rushed down the stairs and began growling wildly. It was the first time I had heard her become so aggressive. Normally, Abby was gentle, but that night she transformed into a fierce protector ready to fight. I called for Abby to come back, but she didn't listen. I had to act. I ran into my parents' room, grabbed my carefully stored gun, and dialed the landline, ready to call 911. Abby and I hid in the closet, where I held the gun in my hand, trying to stay calm. Suddenly, I heard the front door open. Abby rushed up the stairs, barking furiously. I yelled for her to come back, but then I heard a familiar voice. It was my parents. I ran out of the closet, still shaking. They stood there, stroking Abby, looking at me in confusion. I immediately told them everything that had happened. My mother was horrified, while my father became serious and immediately searched the entire house, inside and out, with a gun in his hand. But we didn't find anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, there was another knock on the door. I was immediately nervous. My father opened the door and saw Uncle Pete, my mother's brother, standing there with an envelope in his hand. Uncle Pete was a strange person in the family. He always made people uncomfortable with his actions and behavior. I always felt uneasy when he was around. Uncle Pete said that he had come by last night to deliver this envelope, but no one was home. My father immediately understood what had happened and slammed the door in his face. When my mom asked what was going on, my dad explained that Uncle Pete had been circling the house the night before, trying to get inside. I opened the envelope and found a thank you card with a gift card inside, addressed to me for helping teach his daughter softball. That night of terror was Uncle Pete's doing. While I was relieved to know who was behind it, I couldn't help but think about what could have happened. What if he had gotten inside? Why did he think it was a good idea to stop by in the middle of the night? And why didn't he call ahead to make sure we were home? I still had many unanswered questions, but I was grateful to Abby for protecting me that night. Surely, her presence and barking had scared him away. From then on, my family kept our distance from Uncle Pete, and we never invited him into our home again. Still, memories of that night haunt me, reminding me of the fragility of the safety of my own home.